Welcome to another episode of Living Your Sparked Second Half. And I have a guest that is living very sparked in her second half. She is actually 59. She started something new 2 years ago, and I think it's amazing. I want you to hear her story because it's something you might want to do, not necessarily that you want to do it for a business, but her business is helping so many people. And it's so cool. So when she reached out to me about being on my podcast and I saw what she did, I was like, yes, 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 yes. Get on here and let's talk about it. And in our conversation, what I learned is she and I have a lot of similarities, but she's somebody who is on a mission. She has a purpose. She has a North Star and it exudes from her. And that is enough to give you a spark. And I loved my time with her. She is from New Zealand. She has a great accent. So I would love to introduce you to her and see how what she does might help you and your family. Today, my guest is Nicola. I want to say Nicola, but it's Nicola Kane, and Nicola has the most amazing business. I am so excited. She actually reached out to me. I have a podcast application. And when somebody comes along and they have a really neat business, I get really excited. And we've had a little bit of an issue trying to get our our schedules synced up. And last time we were had a thunderstorm that we were talking and but today the stars are aligning and she is here and I can't wait to hear her story and let her talk about what she does that's so unusual and so important. So welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Laurie. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to our chat because, as I've told you, I'm very passionate about what I do, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with your viewers.
Yes. And Nicola has an accent. You might have noticed she's from New Zealand. That's on my bucket list, by the way, to go to New
Oh,
Zealand.
great, good, good. You must come. You must come.
Yes. It's a long trip from
It is a
Virginia.
long trip,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's worth it. I
Yes.
promise you.
Yes.
It's really, yeah. We're very blessed to live in such a beautiful place.
Lord of the Rings is one of my most favorite movies,
Uh,
series. And yeah, I just every time I see it, I'm like, oh, it's just beautiful. The places that were filmed for that
Yeah,
movie.
well, there's
Yeah.
lots of tours you can do around that here. So,
Oh,
and the studios, Weta Workshop Studios are here in Wellington, where I live, and you can go and tour around there and see the models being made, and yeah, it's great.
oh my
You'll
gosh. Oh,
you'll be in
even more
heaven.
reason to put it, yeah, on my list sooner rather than later. So why don't you just do a short introduction? We'll get into your backstory about how you came to do this, but just
Okay,
touch on like what you do.
right. Okay. So I create life story video memoirs so that stories don't get lost or forgotten. There are far too many stories that get lost or forgotten when loved ones pass away. And my mission is to save as many family stories and memories on video as possible. And the reason I use video rather than writing or audio, although you can use audio in the mix with some photos as voiceover, but the reason I love video so much to save family memories is because you get the full personality, the true essence of the person captured. So it's not just about the story, it's about the storyteller. So you see the real person and their quirks and their kind of, the intonation of their voice, the whole person comes alive with video more than just you get the facts and the dates and the event times and things when you read an autobiography, but with a memoir on video you get the whole person.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you have a kind of a double meaning of your business, right?
yeah,
Moving
exactly,
memories.
exactly.
It's because it moves us
That's right.
and
That's how
it's
the
in
name came
video.
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I love little word meanings. I'm a big word person. So
Yeah.
tell us how you came to do this. And I always like hearing about how people came up with the idea
Yeah.
And oftentimes it's something that they were meant to do always, and they're using some sort of skills that they've developed.
Uh,
Or I also like to tell people that you can, if you have an interest in something, you can develop a new skill, right?
exactly.
But yeah, something that you know something about or have a passion about. So yeah, can you share that?
Sure, I can. Yeah. So, my background is in IT training, communications, and website design. I did for many years as well. And then I moved into video as a result of the communications role I was in. I was doing some interviews with people and mainly from a business perspective. So I created and my other brand, which I still run, Love to Video, which is all about creating small business brand stories. And when I was running that business, I was sharing stories about how people came to do their business, just as you're doing here, and they were used for promotional purposes. And then in 2018, my father passed away. He was a very active 77-year-old who had a stroke followed by seizures and went downhill very quickly, could no longer communicate with us or do anything for himself. And he died at 78. And we never saved his story. And it hit me at his funeral. We were sitting listening to the beautiful eulogy from his cousin, who he'd been friends, long lifetime friends, as well as his cousin. They'd been friends since they were teenagers, and they used to get up to all sorts as teenagers. And I heard these stories that I'd never heard before, and I thought, oh my gosh, if only I could have got Dad telling those stories. How amazing would that be? I mean, it was nice to have his cousin sharing it, but it just hit me that, there must be a lot of other people who have these same regrets. So Moving Memories was born. I thought, I've got to save stories. I've got to help people save their stories using video so that people get to know the real person before it's too late.
Yeah, that's so profound because my grandfather died when I was gosh, 25.
Oh,
And
that's,
so
yeah.
even though I was I was pregnant with my second, and he had quite a storied military career,
Mm,
but I didn't become interested in that until I got late. As we grow older,
yeah,
I think we're more interested in history because
absolutely. Yeah,
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 yeah, like we have our own history at that point. But when you're young, you're just like most of us, unless we're old souls, I think, don't pay attention to that.
yeah.
And it's
No.
interesting because on Veterans Day, I decided to Google him because I was just looking for a picture, because I know there's a picture on the internet of him. And this most interesting story came up that I had
Mm,
no idea of. So I knew my grandfather was a two-star general, and I knew he helped make the atomic bomb. He lived in New
wow.
Mexico. Uh, and so I never had to have a discussion with him about how he felt about that. But knowing my grandfather, who is a wonderful human being, I just couldn't ever put kind of that context to it.
No, yeah.
And this article said that he was a witness and testified against Harry Truman. There was actually a trial for, I think, a treason trial for Harry Truman, who he was acquitted. But my
Hmm.
grandfather was one of the primary people for the prosecution that testified against him because he committed crimes against humanity. In my grandfather's opinion, he had other choices than to drop the atomic bomb, but he chose
Wow.
what he felt to be, just an unthought through decision. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
and so when you say this, I'm like, oh my gosh, if I just had the ability to capture his story, to interview him, to ask him
Yeah.
questions about his
I know.
life, how different
Yeah.
that would have been. Yeah,
Yeah.
to have those treasured memories.
Yeah. And if he was anything like my dad, he was probably quite modest about his accomplishments and things. And yeah, that's I think a great part of when you start interviewing someone, they start sharing what they've done, and they don't realize how much they've impacted the world with their history, but I mean, everyone has a story and everyone makes an
Yeah.
impact, but when it's something like that, wow, imagine if you had been able to interview him. Gosh,
Yeah. Yeah, and he was
been
raised by his
amazing.
grandparents on a farm in Wisconsin, so I have no idea, like, that whole
Gosh,
backstory. So speaking of backstory, your backstory, you clearly had some technical abilities. You were comfortable with video.
yeah,
Uh, a lot of people our age, well, I should say Nicola is, and she's okay with me saying this, she's 59, started this a
yeah,
couple of years ago. So very, very late in life pivot, which I love. But a lot of people our age are really uncomfortable or think, I'm not so good with the tech. And so one
yeah.
question I had is when did you get, because we didn't have tech in our life
No,
when we were
that's
younger.
right.
It wasn't a
That's
choice that
right.
we would make when
Yeah.
we were coming out of college. So how did you kind of get into that, and what kept you from, being afraid of doing that?
I did an amazing training course in Australia. Actually, I went across to Australia and I did this incredible course with a company called Girl Director, and she's all about empowering women uh, behind the camera, which I love, of course, because she had come through television and was always kind of kept to the background for her direct, but she was a fantastic director. But she was kept to the background, and she's now on a mission to help women, particularly share their skills behind the camera. So she had the experience, she had the passion, and I learned so much from her, and I'm still learning from her. So I think, yeah, her name's Rachel, and I think she was the influence behind me starting, and she helped me a lot. The other thing, I suppose, was really just testing things out, trying things out. I started small. I started using my phone initially. I started and in the days when I started, we're talking 5 years ago, the phones were okay, but not as good as they are today. And then I moved up to a DSLR and I got the lights and the microphones and all of that added in. So I learned my skills through really self-taught, I suppose, mostly during the last 5 years. And I think because I love talking to people and I've had a communications background and a small business background, I'm used to dealing with people. So that was no problem. And I did a lot of research about family history. I connected with genealogists. I have quite a few friends now who are genealogists or in the family history field. So I kind of, just learnt on the job, I guess. And that's sort of my career has been that way. My whole career has been learning on the job.
Yeah.
I don't have a degree, and I'm proud of that actually.
Neither
And
do
I've
I.
done, yeah,
Yay.
yeah, exactly. It's and my daughter says to me, "Oh, I'm never going to get paid enough if I don't get a degree," because she's never been to uni either. And I said, "Hey, no, that's not true. You have the University of Life here that is teaching you a lot more." That's just my opinion. In the
Especially in
words
this
of
day and age. There are so
Ex
many
absolutely.
options.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
the debt that they build up. Anyway, that's another whole story.
Yeah, I went
So,
3
yeah,
years
I
and
don't have
left.
official.
Yeah, I went 3 years and left because nothing that I was taking interested me. And
That's
then I had a
right.
broken heart, so I was like, "I'm out of here." So,
Yep,
yeah,
and so many leave university with these qualifications that they never use. So,
both of my
yeah.
kids don't use their degrees,
Yeah,
but they
interesting,
learned.
isn't it?
I think there is this social life aspect that is
Oh, yeah, yeah,
helpful.
yeah.
That
Absolutely,
they learned. I
absolutely.
learned a lot about myself living with other people.
Yes, 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 yes. Well, I did a lot of traveling when I was younger. So when I was 19, I left New Zealand and went and lived in the UK for 12 years. So that's kind of my university of life, was having to fend for myself and find a job, and in fact bought my first property in Scotland, at the age of 21 or something. So yeah, it's there's lots of things that we do in our lives that just that experience. And so doing this job as a life story video producer is kind of a natural progression from all the work that I've done before, I think, because I'm just sharing stories about, or helping people share their stories about how they got to where they are and what matters to them, and what's some, life lessons they've learned, life experiences they've had that have shaped them into the person they are. And that's the stuff we want to capture. That's the gold. We don't necessarily need to know, where they lived, what school they went to, although that's nice to have. We want to have a lot more than that. We want to go deeper into their psyche and really find what makes them tick. And
Yeah,
that's
so
what my
it
work
sounds
does.
sorry, it sounds like your doing the small business videos was just in the past 5 years, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So when you made the decision not to go to university and to just go travel, what drove you in that decision?
My father was born in Scotland, so I had aunties and cousins there, and I'd always wanted to go there, and no one from the family had ever been back. And my darling Scottish grandmother, who was like the storybook grandma, she wore her hair in a little bun her whole life, um, and she was so excited when I mentioned that I might be going, and she just wanted me to go and see her sisters because she was the middle of 6 girls. She was the middle one, or middle-ish, and she'd never seen them since she left Scotland in 1941 to come out to New Zealand. Sorry, 1945 they came out. And she'd never seen them again. So she really, really wanted me to go and visit her family. So I guess I kind of went on a bit of a pilgrimage for her as well.
Did she go with
And
you?
she's not, no,
Did
sadly,
she
no.
did she go with you on the trip?
Oh, did she go with, I thought you said, is she still with you? No, no, she didn't go with me. My grandmother was profoundly deaf, and yeah, she didn't travel much, or yeah, she was very much a homebody. So, I wouldn't have thought it would even cross her mind. In fact, I don't think she could fly because of her hearing problem. So, yeah, she obviously followed my journey. And in those days, there was no internet to speak of. It was 1983. So I was only able to connect with her by the odd telephone call, which cost a fortune in those days, and
Yes.
writing letters.
People have
So
no idea.
yeah, I wrote a letter every time. I would meet with family. I would write a letter to her and just tell her who I'd met, and yeah, she just loved it. She absolutely loved the connection.
That's great. So
Yeah.
what did you do? You went to see your sisters, and what did you do for work? You said you bought a property.
So yeah, my first job actually, before I left New Zealand. I was a legal secretary. That was what I left school. I went to do a secretarial course, and then I was a legal secretary in Wellington for a year or two. Yeah, no, only a year before I left. And I got a legal secretary job in Glasgow, which was so different to working here. I was in like a typing pool, and everything was much more proper than in New Zealand. New Zealand's a very laid back place, as you probably know. Um, and from there, it was just in the age of computers were starting to come in, and um, I applied for a job with a computer company called Data General. They're still around, and they were. It was my first job. Was working with them as a secretary, and then from there, I developed some skills in various computer systems that were all, new. Email was only just coming out and things, and so I from there went to got transferred to London, and became a trainer of the computer systems. And yeah, those were the 80s were such fun times. We did a lot of working, but we did a lot of playing as well. I can tell you, we had lots of great times. And I won an employee of the year. Actually, I won with Data General, and went to Austria on a magnificent trip that they shouted all the winners, or there were several different categories. And I was with Data General for 10 years over there doing IT training. And then I went out on my own, decided I would do this training gig on my own. And when I came back to then I met my husband in Scotland when I went back to Scotland on a trip, and then I came back to New Zealand, set up my own training company here, and then did a lot of contract work, doing training and technical writing. And from there, then I had my daughter, had a couple of years off, and went back to work part time. And yeah, and then I got involved with web design through another computer consultancy company, and developed websites for a few years. And then the videos came in. Oh, and I did some communications work for a charity along the way as well. So yeah, it was. I've had quite a varied career, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was all to do with teaching people and working closely with people, and getting to know who people were. And I think that's helped me develop the skills that I have to interview people, because yeah, I just love getting to know people's stories.
Yeah, I
Um,
think
Everyone has a story.
our stories are very similar. It's so crazy.
Ah,
I started as administrative assistant, and
uh-huh,
I got promoted up into, like, because I was curious about the computers and I started learning about the computers.
uh-huh.
And then I became, because I had an English background and I'd taken some English, I was like an English ed major, even though I didn't finish
Yeah.
it. And then I became a technical writer and a trainer. Same path, exactly. Yeah. And then I went into project management from there. But yeah, so similar. So
That's crazy.
tell me, because one of the things, I don't feel like I ever had a big purpose. My kids were my purpose.
Mm,
And so as long
mm,
as I had my kids, working was kind of like, it's kind of like the opposite. You like to have your work be your purpose, and then you
yeah,
have like like some hobby fun things on the side,
yeah,
work be your purpose and your thing. But my work was
yeah,
kind of like my little hobby, and my kids were
yeah,
like my
yeah.
purpose. So it's kind of like flipped upside down. But I just knew I loved being a
Exactly.
mom. So when they left, and then I didn't have a purpose anymore, it was like, "Whoa." And so, but I found in my career that there were things that I loved doing and always involved when I was with people and we were working together on a goal that was shared, which kind of aligns with what I now
Yeah,
do as a coach. And then I still do training, right? In my
yeah.
program. So tell me, like, how do you feel? Because I feel like what you're doing right now, and tell me if I'm wrong or not, but it's very purpose driven.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Huge reason, like making a big difference in the world. And that's got to feel
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I there are so many stories, as I said earlier, that will get lost or forgotten if they're not saved. So my mission, if you like, is to help save as many as I can, and that's why I started my YouTube channel. I had some friends, or family more than friends, actually say to me, "Oh, if you're showing people how to do this on a YouTube channel, aren't you taking away business from yourself? You're teaching people how to." I'm like, I want to save stories, and if people want to save their own stories, that's fantastic. I just want people to save their stories, and record them with video. So I'm very purpose driven. My mission is to save as many stories, whether it's through they come to me for help or whether they do it themselves. And I also teach courses at the local community college, so that's another thing. I'm showing people how to do it, but there will be things that come back to me. People might come back to me to help them with editing, or they might ask me to do a bit of consulting with them on how to get started, that sort of thing. But yeah, no, the purpose is to make sure that particularly people in their older years, so the 70s, 80s, 90s, now we're starting to lose those people from our lives. And once they're gone, their stories are gone as well. And so there's a bit of an urgency there. They don't have a digital footprint like we do. We have photographs, well, our children certainly have their whole lives documented on their phones. So, but our grandparents and our parents not. So,
Right. Yeah.
they
They
have
don't
the
do
box of black
selfies.
and white. No, no, they have the box of black and white photos, um, and that's the other reason for the urgency. Your mum probably knows who's in the photos, and when she's gone,
Yep.
who's gonna know who's in the photos? I hear these awful stories of boxes and boxes of photos being thrown out because nobody knows who's in them.
Oh,
And that's so sad,
yeah.
there's history that's being lost, and that's
Yeah.
and it's not just history, it's legacies from families of, stories from our past, stories that can help other people to heal from trauma. If they understand where their family came from. Like my grandfather, for example, was we used to call him Grumpy Granddad. And the reason he was grumpy, I now know later years, is he lived, he was a World War II veteran. He survived his Navy ship being torpedoed 3 times. So no wonder he was grumpy. The man was suffering from, PTSD. So we need to understand our past in order to understand who we are now, and to be able to get on with our futures is my belief. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So how
I
does
think
somebody go about it? You have, I think, interview questions, right?
yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of stuff on my website, movingmemories.nz.
So we'll
There's a
we'll hook
download.
up you to in the show notes too, so people
Sure.
can
Thank you.
scroll
Yeah.
down and see that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a list of 30 life story questions. There are way more than 30 that you could use, but I have 30 kind of standard life story questions. Some are about, you know, early childhood, some are about middle part of life, some are thought provoking questions, such as how would you describe yourself in 3 words? Those sorts of questions. I share those on my website. I've also got a downloadable video confidence ebook, which has 10 tips on how to get confident on camera. So, simple things like warming up your voice before you start. I have some fun exercises that I share. And things that perhaps you hadn't thought about that you do need to think about before you jump on video. It doesn't have to be, all the expensive lights and equipment. It doesn't have to be done that way. You can do video interviews as we're doing here today using likes of Zoom. And in fact, I do record some family stories via Zoom in this way, and we just then intersperse the photos and stuff in the editing stage. So yeah, there's a lot to be said for using what you have on hand, and that's what I try and teach people.
Yeah, so it sounds like you are dealing directly with the people that you want for them to create their video of memories. So they're in a way looking at the questions and then speaking from those questions. They're not really being interviewed, because I was thinking, oh, maybe a grandchild or a grown grandchild or a daughter or son would do the interview in kind of a 60 minutes kind of fashion.
Well, you could do it that way. You could, I mean, that's how I do it when I work with my clients. But if somebody chooses to work with me, I give them the list of questions, and they select 6 or 8 questions, for example, for a 15-minute video. That would be about right. And then I ask them those questions, and they give me the answers in an interview style. So they could do it that way. Or you could just have the words of the questions coming up on the video screen, and then they answer it directly themselves. So they don't have to have someone else involved. It's
Yeah.
quite nice to have someone else involved, but they don't have to. And sometimes I say to clients that want to have their daughter or their son present in the room, I sometimes say to them, I think it's probably better if it's just you and I, because people
Ah,
won't always share their deepest feelings if there's someone, particularly another family member in the room, kind of hold back a bit. So it's interesting, and yet
yeah.
others don't feel comfortable without a person there. But I do find the ones where just me and them, I get more golden nuggets, as I call it, from them.
That's great. So do you
Yeah.
edit these? Is it
Yes.
raw footage or?
No, no. Yeah, no. I edit them, so I put in a nice title at the beginning. We might have early childhood photos at the start with dates and times and places if that's provided, and then we interweave the photos throughout as we're talking about different things. If we're talking about school days, we might have a school photo come up. If we're talking about the birth of a child, we'll have that child's photo come up.
I love that. I was going to
And
ask you if it was more of a, if you
it's
could have
like a
little vignettes.
documentary.
Yeah.
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 So it's
How,
like a personal documentary that they get at the end of the day. So the raw footage is taken. It's the editing is actually the biggest job,
yeah.
and I'll put some music behind it and titles, and if they want subtitles, we can do that as well.
How long do these end up being?
Uh, the majority are between 30 and 40 minutes. So,
Mhm.
and the reason, I mean, they could go on longer. There were a couple of people that I interviewed who we could have made like 2-hour documentaries of their stories, but we reduced it down because people's attention spans sadly are not so good these days. So watching something for more than 40 minutes, you probably wouldn't have, a family member probably wouldn't watch for longer than that. So some might, but yeah, I recommend a maximum of 45 minutes in total.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What came up for me is what a great thing to run at a eulogy or as a
Yeah.
memory of
Yeah.
somebody
I'm
that,
actually doing one. Yeah. I'm doing one for that very reason in the next few months, for somebody he wants to develop it so that he can use it as his eulogy.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh,
Thinking ahead.
it's yeah.
And I guess the beauty of that is you get to share what you want to share at your funeral, you know?
Hmm.
You don't have
Yeah.
other people saying, you can share, well, this is who I am, and this is what mattered to me in my life. So, yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, I've heard of people actually like doing a video on their child's birthday every year. And
Yeah,
so when they're 18 here, I want you to know what I was thinking, what I was going through. I mean,
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that could be so meaningful
absolutely.
and yeah, I love that.
Well, I say to people, don't wait until you're 70 before you start saving your life story, because every decade of your life, different things have happened and your values change, your perspectives change. So I would start recording if it was me. I would, looking back at 30-year-old me, I really wish I'd recorded some of my life perspectives and values at age 30 when I was living in London, living this crazy life of, I was earning a lot of money. I was doing lots of traveling, and if I just had the foresight then to record those things, that would have been amazing to look back on.
It wasn't as
Each
easy
each
then.
season of our life, we have different things that we value,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. We would have had to
yeah,
done it a cassette, put it on cassette. I know I have a lot of like cassettes from the bands I liked, but I don't think I ever spoke on one because I didn't like my voice. I was like, oh, now I talk so much that it's like I don't
yeah.
even doesn't bother me.
I hear people
But
say that. People
yeah,
do say that. I know.
yeah. So have you done yours?
No.
Okay.
I will. I will. I've started.
Yeah.
I have started, and I'm really focused on doing my dad's at the moment. So it's just finding the time, in between doing client stories. But no, I will. I'm started on my mum's. I've started on my dad's, and I've started on mine. So I've got three kind of sitting.
Three. Yeah, it's the home
Yeah,
projects. It's like
yeah.
the
Three projects
shoemakers
on the go.
kids
Yeah,
that don't have shoes and yeah.
yeah.
So your dad has passed, but your mom is still
Yes,
alive?
yes, she is.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're making one and kind of after the fact.
Yeah, they were together for 55 years, or they were married for 55 years, together for over 60 years. They met when they were 16. So they were kind of joined at the hip. And so anything that we didn't capture from Dad's life in small snippets of video that I have of him, she can kind of fill in the gaps. And the cousin who spoke at the funeral, I'm going to get him to read that same speech out and have that in the video as well.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
it
Yeah.
was so beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could talk to you longer, but we need to wrap up. One of
Of
the
course.
things that I noticed about you is that, which is a little bit similar to me, is that we have to constantly be growing like in some kind of a challenge. Like, I don't know. It sounds like even though you were in a company for 10 years, by the way, Data General, my best friend from college, her husband worked for Data General and he came here and she took a class he was training and that's how they met.
Oh,
But anyways,
goodness.
yeah. So I know Data General because he used to work there. But anyways, you stayed there for a while, but you're probably like moving positions, like getting exposed to new things in that 10 years.
Yeah.
So you keep doing and exposing yourself to new challenges, which I think is great for our spirit. And
Yeah.
you clearly have been doing a lot. You haven't let your age slow you down like a lot of people think. Your brain is still working. And you're so passionate about what you're doing now. Where do you see yourself going? Because it's almost like everything has been a stepping stone to the next thing. So
Mm.
there's got to be a next thing, even though you're not focused on that right now.
No, yeah. I did when I initially started Moving Memories, I had thought about franchising it and getting more and more people involved, and that's something that's kind of on my wish list at some stage. Whether it's, I don't know if it's going to be an official franchise, but I'm based in Wellington, which in New Zealand, it is a capital city, but our populations are much smaller, so we need to have really make something available across the whole country. In New Zealand, I would like to have a location in Auckland and Christchurch at other ends of the country as well. So, yeah, that's kind of my dream is to get some other videographers in those locations to do the same work as I'm doing, and to get more stories saved that way, because there's only me. I can't
Yeah.
I can't go and save 5 million stories. So
Well, yeah, and
that
I
would
say
be
speak more about it, get there yourself out there as a speaker. I mean, it's
yes,
interesting because once you have your North Star, which you clearly have, it's just like, keep going and things are going to come your way and things will
yeah,
open up for you. And I just
yeah.
love that. There's
Yeah.
never really a destination, right?
No, there's not. And I'm starting with there's an Australian company that does training on family history online, and I'm starting working with them from October, delivering a course online with them, teach people how to get started. So, but there's lots of, I don't think I'll ever stop teaching this as long as I can.
Yeah.
And I always encourage people, and I'll probably always record stories for people. Yeah, I also I do some part-time volunteering as well for a hospice here, and that's something that I can see myself doing more of in the future. So, and telling their stories. So, yeah, I had a
Well,
conversation with someone yesterday about it, so I'm excited about helping them too.
yeah, that is that you do such a service. It's so great. And then having
Thank
these
you.
cherished memories and something that you
Yeah,
can pull out and
yeah,
revisit. And it's great. My dad, he died suddenly and we don't have a lot of movies or anything of him, but I have a recording, his last voicemail to me, and I still have
oh,
it and I've saved it. And I periodically listen to it because, it's his
yeah,
voice. I like hearing his voice. It
yeah,
makes me feel
yeah.
peaceful and happy. And yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. That's the thing. The voice is a powerful thing. I
Mhm.
don't think I mentioned that as one of the benefits of doing video, yeah, but yeah, voice. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
definitely.
thank you so much for being here. You seem so sparked, and I love to have sparked people and share what they're doing that sparks
Thank
them.
you. Thank you for
Yes.
having me. And I love your channel, so I'm very pleased to be part of this.
Yes. And I'm so glad we finally had our time. No
Yeah, no
interruptions.
storms.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, let's keep in touch. And yeah, we'll put in the
Absolutely.
show notes. But Moving Memories is, I guess you can search on YouTube, right? And find you.
Yeah, on YouTube, the channel is actually called Saving Family Memories,
Saving Family.
which is yeah. There was another channel called Moving Memories, so but Saving Family Memories is
Oh, I
the
love
name of
that.
the YouTube channel, but my website is movingmemories.nz.
NZ. NZ.
Yeah,
Is that what it is? NZ for
NZ.
New
Yeah,
Zealand. Yes. Okay.
yeah.
All right. Thank
Alrighty.
you. All right.
Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Living Your Spark Second Half podcast. If you'd like to watch my guest interviews, you can find the video version of this podcast on my Not Your Average Grandma YouTube channel. Also, you can check out what I have going on at the moment by going to my website at notyouraveragegrandma.com or find me on Instagram or Facebook at notyouraveragegrandma. If you like this episode, please mention it to a friend, and don't forget to leave a review so I know the topics you like best and can bring you more of that content in upcoming episodes. Last but not least, remember to always listen to that inner voice that will never steer you wrong and make living from the most sparked place possible your biggest priority. When we do that, we make the world a better place.